Helena Blavatsky introduced Western minds to one of the most profound and unsettling concepts from ancient wisdom traditions. Every thought, emotion, word, and action that has ever occurred is permanently recorded in what she termed the Astral Light. This invisible medium, which later became known as the Akashic records, functions as a cosmic library containing the complete history of all consciousness. In Isis Unveiled, Blavatsky described the astral light as an ethereal substance that permeates all space and time, acting as nature's memory bank. Unlike human records that can be destroyed or falsified, these impressions are indelible and accessible to those who develop the psychic faculties necessary to perceive them. She explained that sensitive individuals throughout history, prophets, seers, and mystics, had accessed this repository of universal knowledge. The implications of this teaching are staggering. Every secret thought you've harbored, every kind gesture you've made in private, every moment of hatred or love you've experienced, every word spoken in anger or compassion, all of it exists eternally in this cosmic archive. There is no hiding, no forgetting, no escaping the permanent record of your existence. Blavatsky emphasized that this isn't a punitive system designed to judge or condemn, but rather a natural law of the universe. Just as physical actions leave traces in the material world, consciousness leaves impressions in the subtle realms. These records serve multiple purposes. They preserve wisdom for future generations, provide the basis for what many call karma, and offer a complete account of every soul's evolutionary journey. Understanding the astral light revolutionizes how we view privacy, accountability, and the true significance of our seemingly mundane daily choices. Nothing is truly private. Everything matters. Every moment is sacred because it becomes part of the eternal record of human experience. According to Blavatsky's detailed explanations, the astral light captures not just external actions, but the complete spectrum of human experience, including the subtle motivations and emotional states behind every deed. Unlike a simple video recording, these impressions contain the full energetic signature of each moment, the intentions, the feelings, the level of consciousness present during every experience. In The Secret Doctrine, she described how thoughts carry their own vibrational frequency that creates lasting impressions in the astral light. A thought of genuine compassion creates a luminous impression that can inspire others across time and space, while thoughts of hatred or cruelty leave dark imprints that can influence susceptible minds even centuries later. These records are organized not chronologically, but by vibrational resonance. Similar thoughts and emotions cluster together in the astral light, creating what Blavatsky called thought forms that can accumulate tremendous power over time. This explains why certain ideas seem to arise simultaneously in multiple minds, why some locations feel charged with particular emotions, and why sensitive individuals can perceive the atmosphere of places and people. The quality of an impression depends on the intensity and purity of the consciousness that creates it. Blavatsky noted that actions performed with complete awareness and noble intention create the clearest, most enduring records, while unconscious or conflicted actions leave muddied impressions that are harder to decipher. Most fascinating is her teaching that these impressions are not static, but living records that continue to influence the present moment. The astral light doesn't just store the past, it actively shapes the future by providing the subtle influences that guide consciousness toward certain choices and experiences. This understanding reveals why some people seem to attract certain types of experiences repeatedly, why particular patterns persist across generations, and why sincere spiritual practice can literally transform not just personal karma, but the quality of consciousness available to all humanity. Throughout Isis Unveiled, Blavatsky provided numerous examples of individuals who had successfully accessed the Astral Light records, demonstrating that this ability, while rare, has appeared consistently throughout human history. She documented cases of seers who could describe events from distant past eras with uncanny accuracy, despite having no conventional access to such information. One of her most detailed examples involved the ancient oracle at Delphi, where priestesses would enter trance states and access information about past and future events. Blavatsky explained that these women weren't receiving messages from gods, but were reading the impressions preserved in the astral light. Their prophetic abilities came from perceiving the karmic patterns recorded there and extrapolating their probable outcomes. She also referenced medieval mystics like Swedenborg and Jakob Boehme, who described receiving visions of historical events and cosmic truths. Rather than dismissing these as hallucinations or divine revelations, Blavatsky identified them as natural psychic phenomena. These individuals had developed the ability to perceive the records stored in the astral light. More controversially, she claimed that many historical accounts accepted as fact were actually derived from Akashic readings rather than physical evidence. Some ancient texts, she suggested, were transcriptions of psychic perceptions of past events rather than eyewitness accounts, which explained both their remarkable detail and occasional discrepancies with archaeological findings. Blavatsky herself claimed to access these records regularly, using them as source material for her comprehensive overview of human spiritual evolution. Critics attacked her for lacking academic credentials, but she maintained that direct perception of the astral light provided more reliable information than historical documents, which could be corrupted, destroyed, or deliberately falsified. Her detailed descriptions of Atlantis, Lemuria, and other lost civilizations were presented not as fantasy, but as careful readings of the permanent records preserved in the cosmic memory, accessible to anyone who developed the necessary psychic faculties. Blavatsky's understanding of the astral light was remarkably prescient, anticipating modern quantum physics concepts by decades. She described reality as fundamentally vibrational, with consciousness operating through frequency and resonance rather than mechanical causation. This framework makes the existence of permanent records not only possible, but inevitable. In her correspondence with early theosophical students, she explained that the astral light functions similarly to what scientists now call the quantum field, a universal medium that connects all points in space and time. Just as quantum mechanics suggests that information cannot be destroyed, Blavatsky taught that consciousness leaves permanent impressions that persist beyond the death of individual beings. She described matter and consciousness as different octaves of the same fundamental energy, with the astral light serving as the interface between mental and physical phenomena. This explains how thoughts can influence material events and why consciousness appears to operate outside normal spatial and temporal limitations. Her teaching that similar vibrations attract each other across time parallels modern understanding of quantum entanglement and morphic resonance. The astral light records don't just preserve information, they actively create connections between related phenomena, explaining why certain ideas, inventions, and discoveries often emerge simultaneously in different locations. Blavatsky also anticipated the holographic model of consciousness, teaching that every part of the astral light contains information about the whole. This means that accessing any genuine Akashic record provides not just specific information, but insight into the universal patterns governing all existence. Modern research into consciousness, near-death experiences, and psychic phenomena continues to validate many of Blavatsky's insights about the non-local nature of awareness and the permanent storage of information in fields beyond ordinary matter. One of Blavatsky's most psychologically challenging teachings concerned what happens to individual records after death. Drawing from Tibetan and Egyptian sources, she described how every soul undergoes a complete review of their most recent lifetime, experiencing not just their own actions, but the full impact those actions had on others. This life review isn't conducted by an external judge, but represents the soul's natural process of assimilating its experiences. The astral light preserves not only what we did, but also the ripple effects of our choices, how our words affected others, how our example influenced their decisions, how our presence contributed to the collective human experience. Blavatsky emphasized that this review process is educational rather than punitive. The soul seeks to understand the lessons embedded in each experience, identifying patterns that served its evolution and recognizing behaviors that created unnecessary suffering. This understanding becomes the foundation for planning future incarnations and karmic corrections. She taught that sensitive individuals could access portions of their own Akashic records while still living, gaining insight into recurring life patterns and understanding the deeper purposes behind their current circumstances. This self-knowledge accelerates spiritual development by revealing the soul's long-term evolutionary agenda. The personal records also explain phenomena like déjà vu, spontaneous skills, and inexplicable fears or attractions. These experiences often represent moments when current consciousness briefly accesses information from past lifetimes stored in the individual's Akashic record. Most significantly, understanding personal records transforms how we view our daily choices. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to create positive impressions in the cosmic library, contributing to both individual growth and humanity's collective wisdom. Beyond individual records, Blavatsky described how the astral light preserves the complete history of human civilization, including periods lost to conventional archaeology. She claimed that the rise and fall of entire civilizations, the development of consciousness through different epochs, and the gradual spiritual evolution of humanity were all recorded in accessible detail. These collective records explain how universal themes and archetypal patterns appear across cultures that had no physical contact. The astral light serves as a repository of human wisdom that inspired minds can access, regardless of geographical or temporal separation. This is why similar myths, symbols, and spiritual insights appear independently in diverse traditions. Blavatsky taught that periods of collective trauma, wars, natural disasters, and cultural upheavals create particularly strong impressions in the astral light. These records can influence subsequent generations, explaining why certain conflicts or behavioral patterns seem to repeat cyclically. Understanding this phenomenon is crucial for breaking destructive collective karma. She also described how the accumulated wisdom of highly evolved souls creates positive impressions that gradually elevate human consciousness. The teachings of great spiritual leaders don't just influence their immediate followers, but continue to inspire seekers through their permanent records in the astral light. According to her synthesis of ancient teachings, humanity is currently transitioning between major evolutionary phases, and those who can access the collective records can perceive the emerging patterns of consciousness that will characterize future civilizations. This understanding reveals the profound responsibility each person carries for contributing to humanity's recorded wisdom and the equally profound opportunity to access the accumulated knowledge of all previous generations. While the concept of universal memory might seem comforting to those who want their good deeds remembered, Blavatsky didn't shy away from discussing the more disturbing implications. Every cruel thought, every act of selfishness, every moment of deliberate harm is preserved with the same fidelity as our noblest impulses. In The Voice of the Silence, she described how negative impressions in the astral light can create what she called shells or elementaries, semi-conscious thought forms that perpetuate destructive patterns. These entities, created by intense negative emotions, can influence susceptible individuals across time, explaining the persistence of certain forms of evil and the way destructive behaviors seem to propagate through cultures. She taught that locations where terrible events occurred often retain these negative impressions, creating atmospheres that sensitive people find disturbing or oppressive. Battlefields, sites of torture, and places where great suffering occurred can remain psychically contaminated for centuries, influencing anyone who enters with the wrong kind of receptivity. This understanding has profound implications for personal responsibility. The privacy we assume exists for our mental and emotional life is illusory. Every unkind thought, every moment of hatred or resentment contributes to the accumulation of negative impressions that can affect others. However, Blavatsky emphasized that negative records can be transformed through spiritual work. Sincere repentance, genuine service to others, and consistent spiritual practice can create positive impressions powerful enough to neutralize or transform previous negative records. She also taught that understanding the permanent nature of all records naturally leads to greater conscientiousness. When people truly comprehend that nothing is hidden and everything matters, they begin to align their thoughts and actions with their highest understanding. Blavatsky provided practical guidance for developing the ability to access Akashic records, though she warned that this capacity required years of disciplined preparation and moral purification. She emphasized that the motive for seeking this ability must be service rather than personal curiosity or gain. The preliminary requirements include developing unwavering concentration, emotional equilibrium, and what she called perfect fearlessness. The astral light reflects the consciousness of the perceiver, so any personal agendas, fears, or desires will distort the information received. Only a completely purified and impersonal consciousness can access accurate records. She described meditation techniques involving visualization of universal symbols that attune consciousness to different levels of the astral light. These practices, derived from ancient Egyptian and Hindu traditions, gradually expand awareness beyond personal boundaries until the individual consciousness merges with the universal memory. Blavatsky warned against attempting to force access through artificial means like drugs or obsessive practices, which could connect the seeker with the chaotic or negative impressions in the astral light rather than the clear records they sought. She emphasized that natural development of psychic faculties through ethical living and spiritual discipline was the only safe approach. Modern practitioners who claim to read Akashic records often lack the extensive preparation Blavatsky described as essential. She warned that without proper foundation, such attempts typically access imagination or wishful thinking rather than genuine cosmic records. For most people, she recommended focusing on purifying their own records through conscious living rather than trying to access others. This approach serves the dual purpose of spiritual development and contributing positively to the collective human record. Understanding the permanent recording nature of the astral light radically transforms how we approach daily existence. Every private moment becomes sacred when we realize it contributes to the eternal record of human experience. This awareness naturally cultivates what Blavatsky called right living, alignment of thoughts, words, and actions with our highest understanding. The concept revolutionizes our understanding of education and child rearing. If children can access impressions from the collective human experience, then creating positive environments and examples becomes crucial, not just for immediate development, but for what the child might psychically absorb from the accumulated records. Professional and business ethics take on new dimensions when we consider that all interactions create permanent impressions affecting everyone involved. The quality of consciousness brought to work, relationships, and daily transactions contributes to or detracts from the collective human wisdom available to future generations. Blavatsky's teachings suggest that artistic and creative works that emerge from genuine inspiration may be channeling information from the astral light records of previous cultures and individuals. This would explain the timeless quality of great art and the way certain creative works seem to contain wisdom beyond their creator's personal experience. The permanent record concept also provides a framework for understanding mental health and psychological patterns. Recurring thoughts, unexplained fears, and spontaneous insights might represent moments when personal consciousness briefly accesses relevant information from individual or collective records. Most importantly, recognizing that we're constantly writing the permanent record of human experience empowers us to consciously participate in creating the wisdom and inspiration available to future seekers. In her most advanced teachings, Blavatsky revealed that the astral light serves purposes far beyond mere record-keeping. These permanent impressions constitute the raw material from which consciousness learns and evolves across vast cycles of time. Every experience, no matter how seemingly insignificant, contributes essential data to the universe's ongoing experiment in conscious development. She taught that highly evolved beings, what various traditions call masters, bodhisattvas, or avatars, use the accumulated records to guide humanity's development, drawing on the complete history of consciousness to provide appropriate teachings and influences for each evolutionary phase. The wisdom they offer isn't their personal achievement, but represents the distilled essence of all human experience preserved in the cosmic memory. The ultimate goal of this universal recording system is the gradual perfection of consciousness itself. Each individual's experiences, recorded permanently in the astral light, become teaching material for countless future souls. Our struggles, victories, mistakes, and insights contribute to an ever-expanding library of wisdom available to all developing consciousness. Blavatsky described how understanding this interconnected recording system naturally leads to the recognition that individual evolution and collective evolution are inseparable. Every thought and action contributes to the common treasury of human wisdom, making each person a co-creator of the resources available for consciousness development. She taught that the final stage of human evolution involves conscious participation in this recording process, becoming deliberately creative contributors to the astral light rather than unconscious creators of random impressions. This represents the transition from ordinary human consciousness to what she called adeptship, consciously serving the development of all life. The astral light thus reveals itself as not just a recording system, but the very mechanism through which the universe learns about itself through the experiences of individualized consciousness. Understanding this transforms every moment into an opportunity to contribute consciously to the eternal wisdom that guides all developing life toward its ultimate potential.